My name is Steven. I'm 29 years old and I'm from Mansfield, Ohio. My family life growing up, it was really tough. I didn't know who my father was. My mom was married to a man that I thought was my dad, and about 6, 7 years old, I found out he wasn't my dad. They ended up splitting up, and things started getting really tough. My mom was a pretty bad alcoholic. She was with multiple men, and I struggled a lot being rebellious. I dealt with sexual abuse between the ages of 7 and 9. I was sexually abused by an older male. I was always scared to confront the situation or talk about it. I always thought people would think I was homosexual. I remember my first time, drinking was about 10, 11 years old, and I just started partying, and it was real tough throughout my young adult years and teenage years. I grew up in a real small town in Richland County, Ohio, Butler, Ohio. If you didn't play football or baseball, you were nobody there. So that was my identity at that young age, was sports. We were really poor growing up, but I was popular just because of sports alone. So what we did on our free time was drink. And I think drinking started really getting serious for me. Now that I look back, at about 14, 15 years old, I realized that's all I was doing, and started partying more than I did throwing myself into sports. So my sophomore year of high school, I decided to quit school to go to the military. I somehow talked my parents into allowing me to quit school and get my GED because my grades were quite tough. Me and a close friend, we were gung-ho for it. We played football together, and so we decided to go to a recruiter, and we wanted to go infantry. We just wanted to be hardcore guys. That was like our fantasy, and being tough. And so we went through the whole process of being a future soldier, and we got shipped off to go to Indianapolis. And they sent us to a Hilton hotel, actually, and my great mind thinking was, let's go there and party with some of the girls that were there. So we went and bought a gallon of vodka and some Red Bulls. We're getting ready to go into the Hilton Hotel. Well, they pulled everybody off of the bus besides us two and sent us to this defense building, and they completely strip search us, and they find all the alcohol, and that kind of ruined everything for me right then and there. So in 2008, my family was on a documentary by Oprah Winfrey and Lisa Ling for heroin. It was like intervention before intervention got big. Just so happened my family was picked to be on that. It was my aunt and uncle and my cousins. So they went around documenting their lives and just what it's like to be a heroin addict. I always told myself I would never be like them. I partied, I drank, I dabbled in ecstasy and cocaine throughout those days, but I always swore that I would never put a needle in my arm. It was 2009, and actually I was getting close to being 20 years old. My life was starting to spiral out really hardcore. I was going couch to couch, and I went to Shelby, Ohio, and found my cousin, and him and another gentleman was in a garage, and they were shooting up tar heroin, and I was like, well, I want to do that. So I reached my arm out. I remember turning my head and closing my eyes, and I was waiting for it to hurt because I was always had a phobia of needles, and he finally did it. When I chose to stick the needle into my arm, I never realized everything that I would lose. Not only 8.5 years in prison, I lost honor, I lost my pride, I lost respect between people. I did sexual immoral things to get money for drugs. I had guns pointed at my head. I've been held up and robbed. I've been beat up. I never realized that moment when that ecstasy ran through my body, and it felt so amazing that I would not only lose everything that I worked so hard for, but I lost my family, I lost my kids, I lost a woman that loved me more than any woman's ever loved me in my life, and on top of that, I lost respect and honor from everybody. It slowly turned into me losing everything that I've ever acquired. The worst thing was I started stealing. My papa and my mama, they adored me. I was their baby growing up. And so they let me and my children's mother move in with our firstborn. I was still working, and then work started getting really rough. I started selling heroin, and then I started using more than I was selling, because I still kept up a clean cut. I still looked good. You didn't see needle marks on me. I always had my hair cut. I always smelled good. I fooled everybody. I was a master manipulator. And So then I started going into their jewelry. I ended up stealing over $30,000 of gold and silver from my mama and my papa. And one day we were sitting around the table. I brought a case of beer home with my grandpa's money that I stole. And we were sitting around and my grandfather decided to pull out some old rings that he's had for many, many years. And he goes to pull it out and he realizes that half his rings are missing when he looked down at it sitting around, and then I just seen his head start turning. He went immediately back into their jewelry box, and at that time I snuck myself out of there. And this officer from the sheriff's department was called by my grandparents because they filed a report. He came there, and that's when everything unraveled in my life. I can remember that was like the first time with law enforcement I really had that was serious, that I could have went to prison for, because I had bags or balloons of heroin laid out, I had my needles laid out and my spoons laid out, and I just started crying. I said, it's gotten out of control, and I actually confessed to him that yes, I've been stealing, and that's when my mother and everybody found out that I was addicted to heroin. And I remember that cop being like a godsend that night. He just came in and started talking to me, and he said, give me everything you got. He says, I'm not taking you to jail, I'm gonna tear this up, but we have to get you help right now. My family reacted and very hurt. You can tell that they were broken. They knew that I had problems, but just like any other family, they never think that their kid will have that problem. And then it came into like emergency mode, I noticed, with my family, because I was so loved. I'm still so loved by my family. And my family did everything they possibly knew at that moment to help me. But then it just turned into them enabling me, really, giving me money because I would manipulate them, and I always would get money out of their pockets. My mama and my papa, they were crushed because in a sense, they raised me, and they swore, they always said up and down, he would never do that to us. And I finally did that to them, and they started realizing how much money I've actually stolen from them. I was so in destruction of sin and drugs and sex and pornography. I was so ashamed. I had so much fear, so much guilt, so much anxiety. I didn't want my name to carry along with my kids due to the fact my name's already bad in Richland County because of the Oprah show. And I wanted my kids to have a different name and to be taken care of by somebody else. One, because I was out of control and I wasn't a good father. I didn't care about nobody but Steven. I gave up hope. I told Holly to go ahead and sign off. Let another man have them. All I cared about was myself. I wasn't gonna pay child support. I wasn't gonna help Holly out, and I never did none of that. I had severe addictions, not just drugs and alcohol. I was addicted to pornography, perversions that this drug pulled out of me that I've never known that was inside of me. It was almost like I was under a demonic position. I was trying to hurt people. I thought people were chasing me. I thought people were after me. I had terrible paranoia. I had some spiritual things I truly believe that were demonic that was happening to me besides the paranoia. And I was so scared. Nothing's ever scared me in my life. I've always been somebody that's head on, and if you tell me I can't do it, I do it 10 times better. And for the first time in my life in 2017, I started getting really scared, and I was extremely desperate for any kind of help. I just didn't know how to get help. My recovery started in a little town called Gallion, Ohio. I sat down and I just started crying. I just prayed and prayed to the Lord to either take me or to make me a father again so I can be a dad and just be a family man. And that was the time when things started really changing in my life. I was in a rehab in Mansfield. It was called Healing Heart. And then one day the supervisor came to me and said, Stephen, your case is just too extreme. We cannot help you here. We are going to send you somewhere to get you away for a little bit until we can find something better for you, something long-term. And I was sent to Toledo, Ohio at the ZEP Center. And my paranoia was still so high because I was still high. I was like, people are stealing from me, they're after me. I was walking downtown and I asked the lady if there was any homeless shelters around, and she gave me directions, and it was called Cherry Street Mission. So I went there and I ended up signing up to get in there for the weekend. And And while I was waiting, I was talking to this gentleman. I asked him actually for a cigarette, and somehow it turned into us talking about addiction. I remember I was still really high, and we was talking, and I just started crying, and like a sob, like where it hurt, where you just were bawling. And I told the gentleman, I said, I would do anything for long-term recovery. And somebody said out of nowhere, "You would do anything?" And I turned around and I said, "Yes, I would." And he said, "Well, you just met the former director of Adult and Teen Challenge, Life Challenge Ministries of Detroit." And I've always heard about Adult and Teen Challenge, and I was like, "No way, I'm not going there." And he said, "Well, you would sign right now to go anywhere?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I can get you into a 1-year treatment facility right now." And by the time he was done speaking, I was like, "Well, where do I sign?" In the process, the next few days, having interviews, signing up for Life Challenge Ministries of Detroit, Michigan, and me getting into Teen Challenge in Michigan. When I finally went to Adult and Teen Challenge, Life Challenge Ministries, they really set a firm foundation for who Christ is and understanding who Christ is. My family raised us in and out of church. My mama and papa, they always had me in and out, my aunts and uncles. And so I knew who God was, but I never had a relationship with God. I was teachable. I became teachable. When they said, "Memorize this verse," I memorized it plus some more. When they said, "Read this book," and I had questions and they said, "Read it again," I read it again. And I truly believe after you start that foundation and you start truly being diligent and seeking the Christ, that's when Christ starts revealing himself. Something that I've noticed is many people believe in their minds, but until it becomes real to you, that's when your life starts to change. Somebody told me this, and I laugh back on it now because I tell the guys this, and I remember how mad it made me feel. He said, "Stephen, it's what you know after you know it all that counts." And it just punched me right in the face because you know what? I knew it all and nobody could tell me. I knew what kind of treatment I needed. I knew what kind of help I needed. At the end of the day, I didn't know crap. I started going to the services in chapel, and I remember Pastor Jeff preaching about Jacob. And I remember I just started crying when he talked about God crippling Jacob's hip. And I said, "That's what God's doing to me right now. What the heck is going on?" And he started teaching us about the story of Jacob and Esau. And that was my pivotal moment because not only did I feel God's presence, but I knew I was safe at where I was at and I was protected. And I knew God had me there and he was protecting me. I deserved to be in prison, really, the rest of my life. And it's only by God's greatest act of mercy that he put me in Teen Challenge and he stripped me completely naked of everything to say, it's time for me and you get to know each other. When Pastor Jeff was teaching about Jacob, that was the moment that I realized that people in the Bible are just like me. When I realized Jesus came for the murderers, the thieves, the people that had incest in their family, the prostitutes, that's when I was like, he is for me. He loves me. The love for Christ for me was just so overwhelming. That's when I encountered God in such a way that you really can't explain it until you have that situation with God. And I get asked that all the time, well, how do you know God is real? Keep searching him, keep being diligent in your word and prayer. God will reveal himself to you. And it was just an overwhelming feeling from the Holy Spirit. I call them God bumps. Some people call them goosebumps. But those are God bumps. And I know when when I'm worshiping, I get God bumps. I get that presence upon me. And it was that exact same presence that I know what it is now today that I experienced. And I knew I was safe then. I knew I was okay. So I came in the program and I started strong. And then it got to the point where my manipulation and everything came in. And I started noticing, well, I can just coast way through this program with my pretty smile or with this little bit of manipulation or rubbing shoulders up with just the right person. Well, 5 months down the road, I was breaking the rules. And when they kicked me out, I went and stayed with a buddy named Chucky. And we were on our way back up from Mohegan. We were pulled over on our way to the ministry in Detroit. So they held me in Norwalk County Jail for 14 days when I was on my way back to the ministry to restart. And they extradited me from Ohio to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I look back now and I've never been bonded out of jail, just seeing how God worked in my life. This lady that I grew up with, she got in contact with me and posted a $10,000 cash bond and said, "Stephen, I care about your soul, get back to the ministry." I was immediately released from jail and taken back up to Life Challenge Ministries. And just that little jail experience, it shook me so bad. It scared me, and it was like a recenter your focus, Stephen. You were desperate to get there. This is what you wanted. Don't play with this, Stephen. I'm giving you a second chance. I remember that being the pivotal moment of going back to jail, God putting on somebody's heart to offer up $10,000 in cash to get me out of jail, to get back to the ministry. So I knew God was involved right there, and I knew that if I have another chance, I don't have many left. So I was just scared to even screw up again. So I came back into the program and restarted after the 5 months I'd just done. And I think that's what kind of changed it. I went all out this time. I remember just dying to myself. When it says to die to yourself, you literally got to drop everything. And the hardest part is because I cut ties with certain family members. And me letting go of them people and really focusing on Stephen, it was just like it opened up 1,000 doors for God to come in and work with me. My relationship with my family is just incredible. God is a redeemer, and he restores those relationships. With my father, I've never had a relationship with my father until now, and we are best friends. I remember just a couple months ago, my father pulled me out and he said, "Son, won't you come with me?" I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll come," because I might be 29 years old, but I'm still that little boy chasing his daddy. Just that love, that affection. And my dad did something so simple that might seem like nothing to many people. He pulled me in his company and he said, "I'm just going to change the oil and I wanted to hang out with you, son." I cried over that because to me that was a moment that I'll never forget with my dad. As a little boy, I always wanted to change the oil with my dad. I always wanted to play catch with my dad. They actually look to me to lead my brothers and sisters now. They actually say Stephen's responsible. I remember walking into my grandma's house and her turning around in the kitchen. She said, "Did you just see what I did?" I said, "No, Grandma, what'd you do?" And she picked up her purse. She said, "A year ago, I could have never done this." And I just started crying right there because that might seem so simple to somebody, but that showed me that she trusts me now. And there's nothing more important than family in this world, and trust, and earning trust. You can lose it by a blink of an eye, but it takes years to gain back at times. And I'm just so proud to be able to be that leader to my family. I want to be the patriarch of my family one day. I want to be the person that people come and say, "What's this question in the Bible? Where do we go with this, Stephen? How do we do this, Stephen?" And I want to be confident that I can lead them. So it's a proud moment in my life. If I could give any advice to anybody, I would just encourage you to press on, that it gets better. It's a very tough program, but nothing comes easy that is that's worth lasting or that will continue to stay in your life. On the season of life that I'm at now after graduating the program after 18 months, I am an intern. The most thing I'm thankful for right now is I know my kids are being redeemed back to me. I never thought that I would ever be a dad again. There are many people that come into this program that are atheists, that do not believe in God. My heart says you'll never make it. But when you come into this program, that's why God has placed us warriors around you to break these tough guys. And I'm preaching to myself because I came in tough as nails. And I remember walking into the program and these people gathering me, putting hands on me saying, "I love you. You can't love me. You don't know me." And they literally broke my heart with love. There's no pill, there's no doctor, there's no psychiatrist that can do that. If I had anything to say, is just that all of us have the same stories, just different circumstances. I can tell you about the sexual abuse, I can tell you about the drugs, I can tell you about the women. I'm sure you have similar stories. If I can tell you to do anything, is just try and to never ever give up. It's going to be the hardest thing you ever do in your life. But if you put in just an ounce of work that you put in walking 3 miles down the street in the snow to get that dope, then you're going to be on the right path. And I can assure you that recovery is definitely a team sport. And that's why I'm where I'm at today. God has placed me to help carry my brother's burdens for them, to come next to you and be understanding and to help you. And I can assure you this, the Bible teaches us that confess your sins to God and He is faithful to forgive you. And then it follows up with confess your sins to man and you begin to heal. I'm telling you right now, if I didn't get out them dirty, dark secrets that in me, that I was like, I'm taking it to the grave, I would not be where I'm at today. Drop them walls of being scared. It might come with criminal charges. It might be, who knows? But I was willing to take that to be free from myself, because no matter where you go, your area might change, your state might change, but you're still taking yourself with you, and it's not going to change until you dig deep. You allow the Lord to work in you. I truly believe in Jesus and therapy, the correct therapy, obviously. I was on 8 different psychotropic medications, SSRIs and unipolar medications. I am on nothing today. They said I was schizophrenic, they said I was bipolar, they said I had severe anxiety, severe depression, and that I was borderline personality disorder. I've been freed from that. I can tell you freedom is real, recovery is real. I believe you can be recovered. You can become whole again. You can be free from addiction. You can be free from the bondage. And you know, drugs and alcohol are just a symptom of deeper core issues. There's something deep inside of you that's causing you to escape, to not want to feel pain. Today, I have an intimate one-on-one relationship with God. Give it a try. Become desperate like I was. Do whatever it takes to save your life. My favorite Bible verse is Proverbs 27:19. As water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart.